What a day at the Mandalay Bay.
Oh, wow.
It is time for some snap judgments. Big Ten Media Days, a hit with the Buckeyes.
I thought it went pretty well, to be honest.
I had a great time.
I mean, we're just going to dive in. This is Austin Ward. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. I felt like I had intended coming into this. I was rankered up, ready to be annoyed by Tony Petitti, and I think that's where we have to start because he was the first speaker of the day. But I actually thought, like, for the most part, I thought he had a pretty good handle on why the Big Ten is handling things the way it is, and it didn't seem flighty. It didn't seem like he hadn't thought it through. It didn't seem fly by the seat of their pants. It seemed like, hey, we believe the Big Ten is the best brand in college football, and the Big Ten deserves its stamp to be on whatever the next iteration of the college football playoff is. And I think that's great. I just still struggle with the idea of, like, how can they make other leagues bow to them?
I don't think they will be able to. Yeah. And it was amusing to me because we're sitting there listening to Tony Petitti, and about midway through, you're kind of like, I think he might be right.
Well, because
he was very convincing.
I do think he might be right about the way this should go. Now, but the way things should go generally has nothing to do with how they do go. And for a guy like him, I also disagree vehemently that he says an 8-4 Big Ten team should be in the playoffs. I mean, like, that's crazy. You can't compare the playoff format of college football to the playoff format of the NHL, where 16 out of 30 teams make the playoffs, or the NFL, where half of the league makes the playoffs. If we had a 64-team college football playoff, that's fine. 8-4 gets you in, but you have to be elite of the elite in this current era to be a playoff team. And I think maybe that's overstepping the line of saying, well, we believe the 9 conference games and the power of the Big Ten. Like, that's perhaps advocating a touch too far. But other than that, I don't think he's wrong about why they feel like it's the right approach. I personally think 4-4, 2-2-2-2-2, or whatever it is a much better system than the 5-11.
I do believe that the automatic qualifying bids put a greater emphasis on conference games and a clearer path to getting to the playoff, and it also removes some of the human element with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. Some of that's going to exist forever because they're still going to have to do the seeding, and then we would argue over that. I think I don't think that Big Ten is going to get their way, or that Tony Petitti is going to get his way. What is interesting is that Ryan Day appears very much to be in lockstep with Tony Petitti. And that's important because
minus the championship game weekend.
Well, yes. But in terms of number of conference games, in terms of getting to AQ spots, expanding to 16, I think Ryan Day is on board with that. And that's significant because, as we've talked about in the past, is Ohio State going to stand up and make its voice heard for this thing? Or can they do this with Fox and Big Noon Kickoff? Can they do this over here with the CSC rules and College Sports Commission and collectives and all those other things? And, like, Ryan Day is absolutely speaking up about that stuff. And Ross Bjork, I think, is taking a very active role in that. We have a conversation with him that will be for Freaky Friday this week, so stick around for that. But, as we shift gears and away from Tony Petitti and then focus more on the Ohio State impact here, Ryan Day is clearly one of the voices of college football.
Yeah, and that's a new role. It's something you have to earn your way into. And I think, we've asked him before, like, as one of the national champions that are still a head coach, do you feel obligated to step in? And he said he's growing into that. And he said every year it feels more comfortable. But the Big Ten needs people to advocate for the Big Ten, and we have watched him do that. I think that this is a good example of it the whole day. I mean, he started his day on Tuesday with us and said, hey, 4 AQs is the way to go. Now, again, I don't think that a championship weekend is good for the Big Ten. I think that it's reckless to let your first and second place teams, who are going to be in the playoff no matter what, have to play a 6 seed that may end up getting someone hurt or end up costing them a game and losing a game and a losing positioning and losing seeding. Like, I think that's silly. But if the Big Ten...
I think the silly part is maintaining the championship game with 1 versus 2, because those teams are both definitely in.
Right.
They're both, if they get to that point, they will have earned it. They will be very, very good physical football teams, and then they have to go beat each other's brains in to try and win a trophy.
And very likely have to play each other 3 games later.
Yeah, it's madness.
I think that the idea of the championship weekend is great if you have those 2 teams there, but not playing. Right?
Just waving?
Yeah, you have 3, 4, 5, and 6, and let those teams play, and then you settle it from there. I think that's better. I think I'm okay with that concept. But to have those teams play again, like the SEC is not going to do that. And they're already playing one less conference game. So now you're not even playing one more conference game. Now you're playing 2 more conference games.
Yeah.
So you can't lament the fact that you play more conference games and then demand to play more conference games.
All right. So, and nothing is going to come of that imminently.
Pardon my interruption, but we sat down with Rich Clark, the executive director of the CFP, and we were kind of joking, and before we had the interview, what are we doing? Why are we going to do this? And I thought it was actually really insightful. I thought it was really good. We'll have that up on the YouTube channel maybe Wednesday afternoon or something.
He was really interesting.
I thought that there were some interesting points that he made about how they decide on where things are going. That December 1st date, I had not heard that was like a timeline in place for changes or nothing.
Yep.
So we are assuming the 16-team playoff comes to fruition very shortly, but as Rich Clark told us, maybe not.
Yeah, it may not, and we'll see. Ohio State has, again, Ryan Day's been active in that, but he's also been really busy trying to gear up for the start of training camp on July 31st, a week from Thursday. What was the most interesting thing you heard from Ryan Day about his roster?
I'm going to be honest, I didn't hear a lot about from Ryan Day because I was running around, but
what about from Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles,
I think that Ryan has a very good. I think Ryan did a really artful job all day of not talking about the roster and not diving into the particulars of position battles because everyone's going to turn around to the quarterback. He reiterated once again that the quarterback situation is far from settled, which is again not a surprise. I thought that the way he spoke about Jeremiah Smith and the fact that he doesn't need to be motivated and you don't have to, the things that you don't have to do for JJ was really good to hear because there is an opportunity for complacency or for the celebrity that is Jeremiah Smith to at some point take over and become bigger than what he does on the football field. And JJ seems super intent on not letting that happen. We had a great conversation with him that'll be on tomorrow morning's edition of The Beat on the Austin Birm Show. And you can just see a kid really starting to come into his own, right? And it's interesting just to watch that. But you tell me, because you were standing right next to Ryan Day for his entire 45 minutes at the podium. What did you glean from that we didn't know?
This happened twice today. Once with Ryan Day and once with Sonny Styles. The topic of the defensive tackles came up, and both times the first name that was mentioned was Will Smith Jr. So I did not have that on my bingo card. Wasn't expecting that. It's not a knock on Tywan Malone, not a knock on Jason Moore, not a question mark for anybody else. But actually, somebody had asked a question of the day about him the other day, and I was like, I don't know. I don't remember seeing Will Smith in June during camps, and no one had brought up his name to me in the 2 months of this offseason. So I was like, I can't really answer that. And now today I can, because the reviews from those two people, who are two of the straightest shooters that you're going to find, sometimes we read too much into who you name first, but both guys, and Sonny specifically got into how Will Smith had got better, the difference, how different he looks. I was not anticipating that. And also on the defensive line, as we look at what the rushmen what they're going to look like, who's going to lead the pass rush, I was surprised in a lot of ways. We know Kenyatta Jackson is going to be a potential game changer, has the upside to be a real game wrecker on the edge, but he's barely played, and he got some work in the playoff push, but he was named by multiple guys he could actually be a block O guy. And I was like, whoa.
It's just a reminder, just because guys aren't making a big impact on the field through the first 3 years of their career, that doesn't mean that they're not still growing and becoming leaders, even though they're still behind other guys. One of the things that we heard was that Kenyatta could have gone somewhere else and started somewhere else as a third-year guy and chose not to, and that resonates amongst the team because players like Will Smith, who are an Ohio State legacy, from Columbus, he's going to be willing to put in the time, but Kenyatta Jackson's from Miami, and we've there's been rumors for 3 straight off seasons that he wants to leave, or
Florida State's tampering.
Yeah, is KJ going to go? Is KJ going to leave? And to hear that he's not just saying, "Hey, I'm here for the long haul," but developing into a guy that other guys are turning to and saying, "Hey, this guy's a dude."
Yeah,
I think is really important. Wasn't really something I heard today, but it was on the Ohio State football feed that Ethan Nanian was one of the dudes of the week. I think that a lot of the conversation we've had in the last 2.5 months about how does the tackle situation play out, I think that maybe is an answer as far as what to expect, at least day one. We've believed Ethan Nanian was going to be the starting left tackle, but now it seems pretty likely.
Yeah, and the starting right tackle is going to be Austin Sarabeld. I think that Ryan Day didn't explicitly say that again, but he reiterated out of everyone from the day after the national championship, who has set the tone, we've seen the dude of the week, we've seen the Iron Buckeye stuff. He talked about him coming out of spring, was like, well, he's just going to start. We'll figure out if it's right guard or right tackle. It's going to be right tackle.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of, for a team that has to replace as many starters as Ohio State, and there are position battles that we could have really dove into, I don't think that the depth chart is going to be that surprising in the middle of camp.
No, I don't think it's going to be surprising at all. I mean, but part of that is because of what they had to experience last year. I was over there for Ryan Day's press conference when he was talking about how many changes they had to make to the offensive line last year and how that probably helped get these guys ready for this year and the roles they're going to have. But nobody exemplifies that better than Austin Sarabeld, who we've talked ad nauseum about all offseason, so we don't need to deep dive into it. But did he get an opportunity, or was he asked about any of the other younger guys? I know running back, he was pretty adamant that it's a 3-man competition still.
Yeah, he talked. I felt like the praise for the way C.J. Donaldson has continued to change his body was the most noteworthy there. Yeah. I think that goes all the way back to February with some conversations that we had with Carlos Lockwin. It's like, you guys need to pay more attention to what he's doing and the way he's changed and what this might look like for him at Ohio State. He's continued that. Yeah. I think mat drills and winter workouts were really productive for him. And then that momentum, I think, has clearly sustained itself throughout the summer. So I'm still on alert. I think that C.J. Donaldson might be the guy who leads Ohio State in carries. That could be an overreaction again to just hearing 15 more seconds about Ryan Day talking about him. But I think that's happening. And the Bo Jackson thing, I think he tempered it a little bit. He did say 3-man, but then the follow-up was specifically about Bo Jackson and what that role could look like. He's like, we're going to get into the year. We've seen these guys have great springs before, and then the season is a different monster. I'm still very excited about what Bo Jackson did in March and April. July 31st is going to be a different era.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Day is almost always, or whatever head coach is here, is almost always asked about the young guys that we haven't seen. Was there anybody that was discussed? Did anybody ask about Turbo Rogers or anything else of the new guys that enrolled in May that we haven't heard about, especially defensive?
No, usually that does come up. You're right, but I don't think that the conversation got to that point because some people decided that they needed to ask, hey, how do you beat Michigan? And that knocked Ryan Day out of, I thought, what was a
rhythm. Yeah.
Good conversation. It turns out, Birm, you have to score more points.
I feel like that question is something that deserves to be asked in a much different manner.
That's not the place.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And also, if you ask the question, how do you beat somebody? In every game, you have to
the answer is score more points.
Either score more points or take less strokes.
Yeah.
I think let's figure out a different way.
Yeah. But I don't want to figure out a different way. I like that system.
Yeah.
The point system seems to be...
You're on board with that?
Yeah.
You and Tony Petiti.
If we're talking about changes to things, I don't think we should change that scoring more points wins games most of the time. I think that is a tried and true system that is really been in the sweet spot for sports.
You've become such a Tony Petiti sycophant.
The conversation with Sonny Styles, with Caleb Downs, with Ryan Day about Matt Patricia, I think that this offseason, is something we've talked about quite a bit, but the surprise factor of what Matt Patricia has brought from a personality and culture standpoint is something that I just did not expect.
And trying to put this the right way. Because Matt Patricia has not coached the game at Ohio State
Right.
yet. And we've made that point. Yes, you
And
have to,
maybe all that stuff means nothing.
it might not mean anything by August 30th. We'll see. But I've got to the point where we've talked about that so much, and I feel so strongly that it's just going to be really good, that I'm feeling like we haven't talked enough about Brian Hartline. And maybe that's because we had the conversation so much 2 years ago. But, his impact in the play calling, and I asked Ryan Day about that, what he can do in the summer. He said, Brian Hartline knows what's coming here. He's doing everything he can to prepare. We did this and that in the spring. He's got this going on to be comfortable in the summer. I think as we get into this final stretch of the offseason, that's sort of where I've talked myself into everything is 100% fine. Matt Patricia was a home run. Skepticism all gone. Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles,
Fully on board.
I'm fully on board with the Silver Bullets. And it's not uncertainty with Brian Hartline, but if you have a first-time play caller and a first-time quarterback, suddenly I'm like, maybe we've taken for granted that a Ryan Day offense is always going to be good. And I'm not saying that it won't be. I'm just saying we could maybe have a question.
All those preseason polls are like the top offenses, and they're like Ohio State's like 8th or 9th or whatever. And it's like, I guess. I mean, maybe. I thought the most interesting
Probably not by November.
Yeah, I thought the most interesting thing in the Brian Hartline discussion was that Ryan Day said that the easiest thing to do as a coordinator is call plays.
Yeah.
Because it seemed in the last couple of years, especially in 2023, that he refused to surrender that for control factor. But if that's the easy thing to do, maybe he was holding on to it for comfort factor. It was his ability to be away from the game. You know what I mean? I think that, or away from the rest of the game. So I think that was interesting, maybe more than I initially thought in the moment, because I don't think calling plays is easy, especially when you then turn around and acknowledge that you brought in Tyler Bowen to help, on the run game side of things, because he said Brian's reputation is earned on the passing side of the game. So clearly there's parts of the game where he thinks Brian Hartline still needs some supplementation. But I just thought, play calling is easy. Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I think it was an interesting conversation, and I think we're going to get into it a lot more as we get into the last 4 or 5 episodes of The Beat before training camp opens a week from Thursday. I don't love Big Ten Media Days, but I think that this was a pretty good one with Ohio State. They continue to be very impressive with the people that they send, the way that they handle the whole show. Jerry Emig and Mike Bassford doing phenomenal work to guide them around and make sure that everybody gets a chance to talk to them. And in our conversations with, if you didn't see it, Ryan Day is already up on the 97.1 and 10 TV YouTube channels and already in your podcast feeds if that's how you listen instead of watch the show. Tomorrow morning on The Beat, we will follow that up with our conversations with Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, and Sonny Styles. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you for watching Snap Judgments on a Tuesday in Las Vegas.
Goodbye.